help us hit our first 1,000 subscribers. Your support drives us to create even more wonderful stories. Thanks for being part of our journey. I always believed that if you kept your head down, worked hard, and treated people right, life would eventually reward you. That's what my father used to tell me every morning before his shift at the steel mill. You give the world your best, and one day it'll give it back, he'd say, sipping burnt coffee from a chipped mug. I carried that belief into my own life like gospel. I wasn't born lucky. I wasn't handed everything I had. My modest house in the suburbs, my aging Ford pickup, and my job at the auto parts factory. I got by bleeding for it, and when I met Emily, I thought maybe life was finally giving something back. She was like a warm breeze in the middle of winter, smart, beautiful, and with this laugh that could melt concrete. I couldn't believe she wanted a guy like me. I wasn't smooth. I wasn't rich. Hell, I wasn't even confident. But she saw something in me, or at least, I thought she did. We married in a small backyard ceremony, nothing fancy. Just a few close friends, her parents, and a rusty grill full of half-burned burgers. I still remember the way she looked at me in that simple white dress, barefoot in the grass. I thought I was the luckiest man alive. Back then, I worked long shifts just to keep us afloat. I didn't complain. I thought that's what love was. Sacrificing for each other. She wanted to stay home and raise our daughter, and I was proud to make that possible. It made me feel like a man, like a provider, like I had purpose. But now, looking back, maybe that was the first mistake. Because while I was out there busting my back under flickering warehouse lights, she was building a life I had no idea about. A different life, one full of secrets, lies, and a betrayal that would tear my soul in two. And the worst part? I didn't see any of it coming. For a while, I pretended not to notice. It started small. The way Emily would smile at her phone, then flip it over when I walked in. The way she suddenly had errands that lasted 3 hours, or how she started wearing perfume again. The kind she hadn't touched since before the baby. I told myself it was nothing, that she just needed space, that maybe she was rediscovering herself after motherhood, but something inside me twisted every time she left. I'd stare at the clock, watching minutes drag like hours, wondering who she was with, what she was doing, and why she didn't look at me the way she used to. At night, I'd lay beside her in silence, staring at the ceiling while she turned away. I missed the days she'd pull my hand to her chest and whisper, "Don't let go, now." She barely said goodnight. I remember one morning. I had just finished a 14-hour shift in the cold, my hands raw from the wind and metal. I brought home her favorite donuts, thought maybe we could sit, talk, reconnect. Instead, I found her on a video call, and when she saw me, she slammed her laptop shut. I asked who it was. She said, "Just Marissa Dash." But the way her voice shook, it wasn't just Marissa. I laughed it off, said I was being paranoid. But deep down, I knew I didn't have the luxury to spiral, though we were barely staying afloat. The bills were piling up, diapers were expensive, and my boss hinted he might cut my hours again. I'd skip meals just so my daughter could have enough formula. There were nights I sat in my car outside the house, engine off, lights out, just sitting there thinking, wondering how long I could keep pretending everything was okay. I was drowning, financially, emotionally, spiritually, but instead of throwing me a rope, Emily was already swimming to shore, and I was left behind, sinking in waters I once believed were safe. The morning it all started to unravel. I wasn't even supposed to be home. I had picked up an extra shift that got canceled last minute. My phone had died, so I couldn't call Emily. I figured I'd surprise her. Maybe make breakfast, try to bring a little light into a house that had grown so cold. I stepped inside quietly, the way you do when you want to catch someone singing in the kitchen or dancing with the baby. But the house was silent, too silent. The kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels off. Then I heard her voice. She was in the bedroom, door slightly cracked. I froze when I heard her laugh. Not the fake laugh she gave me lately, but her real one. The one I hadn't heard in months. And then I heard his voice. Low, confident, way too familiar. I didn't hear every word, but I caught enough. He called her Babe Dash. She called him Baby Dash. And then she said something that shattered me into 1,000 unfixable pieces. "He still thinks I'm going to therapy, dash." My breath caught in my throat. Therapy. That's what she told me every Thursday afternoon. That she was working on herself. That she needed space to be better for us. I'd encouraged it. I told her to take her time. I'd stay with the baby. I'd do whatever she needed. I stood there, clutching a grocery bag with eggs and oatmeal and the cheap coffee she liked, while she told another man that she couldn't wait to be free, dash. Free, like I was a prison, like everything I sacrificed, all the hours, the pain, the years of loyalty, was just her cage. I didn't walk in. I didn't confront her. I couldn't. I quietly backed out the door, sat in my car, and just stared at the dashboard, numb, for 30 full minutes, not crying, not yelling, just hollow, like something had been scooped out of my chest, and nothing was left but an echo. In that moment, I realized I wasn't just losing my wife. I had already lost her, and I was the last fool to know. I didn't sleep that night. I laid in bed next to her, the woman I thought I knew. Her back was turned, like always lately. She mumbled something about being tired, rolled over, and fell asleep like she had no weight in her chest, no guilt, no shame, and I just stared at the ceiling. My mind wouldn't shut off. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard her voice in that bedroom, soft and flirtatious, the way she used to talk to me. I saw her smile, not the one she gave me out of obligation, but the real one, the one she now gave to him. I kept thinking, what did I do wrong? Was I not enough? Not attractive enough? Not successful enough? Was my loyalty boring? I gave her everything I had. I worked until my bones ached. I skipped meals to save money for her birthday gifts. I turned down nights out with friends just to be home on time for dinner, even if dinner was just cold leftovers and her scrolling through her phone. And now, I felt like a stranger in my own home, like a ghost haunting the halls of a life I built but no longer belonged to. The worst part? She still kissed me goodbye that morning, just like always, like nothing had changed, but everything had. That kiss didn't taste like love. It tasted like pity, like a slow, silent goodbye she hadn't said out loud yet. Because she didn't have to. She already said it with her actions. I sat in the car outside work for half an hour, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white, my eyes burned, my throat was tight. But no tears came. I was too exhausted to cry, too numb. There's a kind of sadness that doesn't scream. It whispers. It rots you from the inside out while the world keeps spinning like nothing's wrong. And that's exactly where I was, a man breaking in silence. The next day, I stared at her across the breakfast table. She smiled, that same practiced, polite smile she'd been giving me for months. The one that said, "Don't look too closely, don't ask questions. Just play your role, dash." And I did. I stirred my coffee, even though I don't take sugar. I listened to her talk about errands she had to run. She mentioned lunch with her old college friend, probably the same guy from the bedroom. I nodded like it didn't cut into my ribs, but inside, something shifted. That morning, for the first time, I started to watch her. I mean, really watch every movement, every glance at her phone. The way she tilted the screen away from me. The way her fingers danced across it too fast, like she knew I might be looking. And when she left the house, I followed, not like a madman, not yet, just far enough to keep her in sight. I watched her walk into a fancy cafe downtown. I stayed across the street, half hidden behind a delivery truck, my heart pounding like I was committing a crime. But I wasn't the one doing anything wrong. 10 minutes later, he walked in. Same guy, tall, athletic, too young to have those kinds of intentions with a married woman. And definitely too confident walking in like he'd done it 100 times before. They hugged. Too long. And then, she laughed. That laugh. That same laugh she hadn't given me in almost a year. That sparkle in her eyes. The way her whole face lit up. It wasn't for me anymore. It belonged to him now. I stood there. Frozen. Part of me hoped I was wrong. That it was all in my head. But it wasn't. This was real. This was betrayal in its purest, most heartless form. And as I stood on that corner, broke, exhausted, full of love that nobody wanted. Something inside me died, but something else was born, too. I won't be your fool forever. She didn't know it yet. But this game? It wasn't hers to win anymore. I stopped recognizing the man in the mirror. Dark circles carved themselves under my eyes like permanent bruises. My beard grew in patchy, uneven and unkept, like everything else in my life. Even my clothes felt wrong. Like I was wearing someone else's skin, someone older, someone smaller. The pain wasn't just emotional anymore. It had seeped into my bones. Every time she touched her phone, I flinched. Every time she left the room to make a call, I'd sit there counting seconds, imagining her voice sweetly whispering someone else's name. And every time she came back with that fake smile and a kiss on my cheek, I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I swallowed it, all of it, because what do you do when you're not just heartbroken? You're financially trapped. I was still paying the mortgage, still putting gas in her car, still covering groceries she cooked for both of them, I guess. And let me be honest, I wasn't some high-powered executive. I worked 10-hour shifts at a warehouse that smelled like sweat and cardboard. My back always ached. My hands were cracked. I was barely scraping by, and now I was funding my own humiliation. I thought about leaving every single day. But where would I go? A motel room? My brother's couch? And what about the dog? What about the dishes she never did? The ones I'd always clean up because I hated coming home to a mess, even if my whole life was one. What about the life I spent 10 years building? And that's the worst part. Not the betrayal itself, but how much of yourself you lose trying to keep something alive that's already dead. I started talking to myself in the dark, whispering things like, just hold on a little longer dash, or maybe she'll feel guilty, maybe she'll confess dash. But she never did. She never would. I was invisible, a ghost haunting his own home, watching his wife slip away, and knowing she didn't even care enough to lie convincingly. But still, I waited, because soon, I'd make her see me again, not as the broken, tired man in the mirror, but as the storm she never saw coming. I finally realized that waiting for the truth was useless. She wasn't going to confess, not out of guilt, not out of love, not even out of fear, and I was done begging for honesty in a house built on lies. So I stopped asking questions, stopped reacting. I played the fool, her loyal, tired, oblivious husband, but behind that mask, I was building something else. A plan, a quiet storm. I started by buying a small camera, nothing fancy, just enough to tuck into the air vent in the bedroom. Another one behind the bookshelf in the living room. I didn't care if it was legal or not. I wasn't trying to take her to court. I was trying to take back my dignity. She had no clue, in fact. She seemed more relaxed than ever, probably because she thought she'd won. That I was too blind or too broken to ever notice, but I noticed everything now. Like how she started wearing perfume again before girls' night dash. How she'd come back hours later with lipstick slightly smeared and that glaze, overlook in her eyes like her soul had gone somewhere else. And not with me. I kept my cool. Smiled, slept next to her like everything was fine, told her I loved her. Even when my stomach twisted from the taste of those words. And then I started digging. Passwords, emails, iCloud backups. She used to think I was too technically challenged to figure out how any of that worked. She underestimated me. One night, while she was asleep, I scrolled through her hidden photo album, saw things no husband should ever see, screenshots, messages, videos, and the worst part, she wasn't even hiding them that well. It's like she wanted to be caught, or maybe she just didn't care if I broke completely. I sat in the kitchen that night, staring at the glowing phone screen while our dog curled up at my feet, the only living soul in that house that hadn't betrayed me. And in that moment, I made a decision. If she wanted war, I'd give her war, but not loud, not violent, not messy. No, I'd hit her where it hurt the most, her pride, because sometimes the best revenge is letting them dig their own grave and then handing them the shovel. They say when someone shows you who they are, believe them, but I didn't just believe her actions anymore. I was ready to expose them For weeks, I kept recording, gathering proof she was getting bolder, meeting clients at odd hours, sneaking out late after I'd gone to bed. I watched it all. Every whisper, every lie, every moment where she chose someone else over the man who gave her everything. I wanted to scream, to confront her, to break the facade. But no, not yet. I had one more move to make, and it had to be perfect. So I staged a business trip, 3 days out of town. Left a fake itinerary printed and left on the kitchen table, just messy enough for her to see packed a bag. Even kissed her on the cheek on my way out the door. She smiled. Almost too easily, and that broke something in me. I didn't go anywhere. I parked 2 blocks away, laptop open, phone charged, watching the live feed from the hidden cameras. It didn't take long. Just 4 hours later, a car pulled into our driveway, not even a cab. Not even trying to hide anymore. A man stepped out. Tall, well-dressed, confident. She opened the door for him in a silk robe. I sat frozen hand, trembling on the mouse jaw, clenched so tight it hurt. They drank wine, laughed on my couch, and then disappeared into our bedroom. My bedroom. I wanted to punch the steering wheel. I wanted to storm in, but I didn't, because now I had everything. Every image, every sound, every piece of proof I would need to destroy her carefully crafted lie of a life. This wasn't about just getting even anymore. This was about reclaiming my story, my power, and making sure she would never forget what it cost to betray the man who gave her the world. And as I sat there in the darkness, watching it unfold, I whispered to myself, "Smile for the camera, sweetheart. This is your last performance, Dash." They say silence is golden, but in my case, it was the calm before a storm she never saw coming. For days, I didn't say a word. I'd come home with the same tired smile, ask her how her day went, let her lie to my face. She was good at it now. Too good. She even cooked my favorite dinner one night. Lasagna. Kissed me like nothing was wrong, and every time she touched me, I felt 1,000 needles in my chest. I barely slept, not from rage. Not anymore, but from planning. I replayed the footage over and over like I was studying a crime scene, which, in a way, it was my soul had been murdered in that bedroom, and the killer was eating breakfast across the table from me every morning. She had no idea that the USB with the footage was already in my lawyer's hands. She didn't know I'd spoken to a divorce attorney, or that I found out she opened a secret savings account, transferring money little by little from our joint funds. That was the final cut. She wasn't just cheating with her body, she was preparing to leave me with nothing. So I made a plan, and it started with one simple message, sent anonymously from a new email. "You might want to ask your wife where she really was last Friday night. Attached is something you deserve to see. A friend, Dash." I sent it to his wife. Yeah, the other man was married, too. And from what I'd found on his Facebook, 2 kids. A golden retriever, perfect little family. I knew it would explode, and I waited. I waited for the chaos. I didn't even have to start myself, because I wasn't interested in screaming anymore. I wanted quiet devastation, the kind that unfolds like a slow collapse, one lie at a time. And as I stood in front of the mirror that night, looking into the tired, hollow eyes of a man who gave everything and was handed betrayal, I whispered to my reflection, "Your pain will have a purpose. She just doesn't know it yet, Dash." The explosion happened at 6:42 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was in the garage, pretending to fix the lawnmower, when I heard it. The front door slammed open, and she stormed in like a hurricane made of panic. "Did you send something to Jessica?" That was his wife's name. I didn't look up. I just wiped my hands on a rag, calm as a man in a confession booth. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said, my voice ice cold, but her face was on fire. Red, tears welling, phone clenched in her hand like a weapon. "She knows. She knows everything. She's threatening to divorce him. He's blaming me. What the hell did you do?" And finally, I looked at her, not with love, not with pain, but with freedom. "I gave someone the truth," I said. "Something you've been allergic to for a long time, Dash." She crumbled, dropped to her knees, begging, shaking. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was lonely. You were always working. Working." I laughed. I was breaking myself to keep us afloat while you were playing house with a married man dash. And then I handed her a manila folder. Inside, divorce papers, ready to go, bank statements showing every dollar. She secretly moved a letter from my lawyer, and a final surprise, a copy of the video on a USB, labeled "In case you forget who you really are dash." She gasped, covered her mouth, cried harder, but I didn't stay to comfort her, because that day, I was done being the man who begged for love, done being the one trying to fix what she was burning behind my back. I left the house that night with one suitcase. It didn't matter that I didn't know where I'd go, didn't matter that my heart still hurt, because for the first time in years, I felt peace. I never thought peace could feel so lonely at first. The first few nights in that small one-bedroom rental felt like I was sleeping inside the echo of a war zone. Silence was everywhere. No yelling, no lies, no perfume-covered guilt tiptoeing through the hallway at 2 a.m., just the hum of an old fridge, a stiff bed, and my thoughts screaming at me in the dark. I wasn't okay, not yet. I'd lost my home, my partner of 12 years, the woman I once thought would be the mother of my children, and truth be told, I'd lost myself somewhere along the way too. But pain has this way of carving space inside you. Space for something new to grow. I started journaling again, something I hadn't done since I was a broke teenager dreaming about becoming someone. I went back to the gym, even if at first I could barely lift more than my shame, and I finally took that online course on home inspection I'd been putting off for years. Now I work for myself. It doesn't make me rich, but it makes me proud. Sarah, she tried to come back, called me 2 months after the divorce was finalized, said she missed me, that she made a mistake dash, said she couldn't sleep in the bed she made, and for a second, I almost said yes, but then I remembered the cold dinners, the whispered calls in the bathroom, the look in her eyes the day I confronted her. Not guilt, not shame, just inconvenience. So I told her, calm and steady, "You made a choice and I made mine. I wish you peace, but we're done dash." She cried. I didn't, because finally, I was free, not just from her, but from the version of myself that thought suffering was the price of love. Now, I wake up every day not knowing what's ahead, but I know who I am, and for the first time in my life, that's enough.